The planet Virelia was dying. Twin suns scorched its cracked surface, and violent storms raged across the plains, tearing buildings apart and reducing cities to ruins. Smoke and dust hung heavy in the sky, blocking what little sunlight remained. Earthquakes shook the ground without warning, splitting roads, swallowing homes, and leaving enormous fissures that swallowed everything in their path. The Virelians, a fragile, translucent-skinned species, had lived here for centuries, building a civilization of beauty and intelligence, but now it was all crumbling. Commander Lether stood on the roof of what was once the tallest tower in the city of Othran. His limbs trembled, not from the cold but from sheer exhaustion. The wind whipped around him, carrying ash that stung his eyes. His mind raced as he looked at the destruction below. Buildings he had helped construct now lay in rubble. Streets he had walked as a child were gaping chasms of death. He could hear the terrified cries of his people echoing across the city, and every sound cut through him like a knife. He stumbled to the communications tower, half destroyed by the latest quake. His hands shook as he tried to repair the damaged array. He knew time was slipping away. If the planet's core destabilized any further, the entire surface would be uninhabitable within days. There was no one left to turn to. Their allies in nearby systems had long ignored their warnings. Virelia was small, insignificant in the Galactic Council. No one cared. Desperation made him act. With trembling fingers, he sent a single desperate message into the void. SOS. Planet Virelia. Immediate evacuation required. Life endangered. Please, help us. He whispered a silent prayer. He did not know if anyone would hear them. He did not know if anyone could. All he knew was that he had to try. Far across the galaxy, in a region known as the Outer Rim, the faint distress signal blinked on the screens of a human command ship, the Havoc. The humans aboard were known for their survival skills, their indomitable will, and their terrifying reputation across multiple star systems. These were humans who had survived worlds more hostile than deserts of fire, storms of acid, and moons that cracked like glass under tidal forces. To them, danger was not a threat, it was a challenge. Lieutenant Mara leaned over the console, eyes narrowing. Captain, I'm picking up a weak signal. Planetary designation unknown. Conditions unstable, but it's definitely a distress call. Someone is in trouble. Captain Rourke, a seasoned warrior with scars crisscrossing his face, leaned back in his chair. His voice was calm, but every word carried authority. Weak or strong, a distress call is a call. We don't ignore them. Plot a course. Let's see who's crying for help this time. Mara hesitated, studying the signal. Sir, the planet looks uninhabitable. They may not survive our arrival. Or they may not survive at all. Rourke's grin was grim. Then we survive for them. That's what humans do. The Havoc roared to life, engines flaring like lightning, hurling the ship across the void with terrifying speed. Other ships in the fleet followed in formation, each one a fortress on fire and steel, built to endure horrors no other species could survive. They tore through space, leaving stars behind, following the faint pulse of Virelia's SOS. Back on Virelia, Lether watched the sky. He had no idea who or what was coming. He only knew that this could be the last hope his people would ever have. In the cities below, families huddled together, praying for a miracle, afraid to move, afraid to stay. Children clung to parents, their faces pale with fear, their eyes wide and uncomprehending. Elderly Virelians whispered legends of saviors, of beings from the stars who would one day arrive to rescue the helpless. Most had long stopped believing. The SOS signal, fragile and desperate, cut through the endless void like a tiny candle in darkness. Somewhere in the vastness of space it would meet a species unlike any other. Humans, a species that thrived where others died. A species that had turned death into an art, and survival into a weapon. Lether could not know what awaited them. He could not know that when the humans arrived, they would not bring comfort, gentle words, or assurances. They would bring power, fire, precision, and an unyielding will to survive, qualities that terrified and awed any who saw them. Humanity did not negotiate with death. They stared it down, crushed it, and then extended a hand to those lucky enough to endure it. And in that moment, as the twin suns dipped low over the fractured horizon, Lether whispered to himself, hoping against hope, "Please, hear us, please, save us." Somewhere far across the galaxy, a human ship answered. The horizon of Virelia glowed with an unnatural light. The twin suns dipped behind ash-choked clouds. painting the broken world in hues of red and gold. Lether stood at the edge of the city staring upward. Something massive was approaching, a fleet of ships unlike anything the Varelians had ever seen. The human fleet descended like a storm of iron and fire. Their hulls gleamed faintly in the fading sunlight, covered in scars from battles Lether could not imagine. They moved with terrifying precision, engines roaring, shaking the very ground beneath him. Dust and debris whipped around the city as the ships touched down. Lether's heart raced. His people had begged for help, never imagining who or what might answer. Now standing in the shadow of the enormous vessels, he felt awe and fear in equal measure. These beings were giants. They walked with confidence, their armor glinting and weapons holstered, yet ready to unleash power no Varelian could survive. A voice boomed across the city, amplified by the humans' comm system. "Aliens of Varelia, we received your distress signal. Stand down immediately or face consequences for panic and obstruction." Lether froze. He had expected help, yes, but not this raw, commanding force. We called for help. Please, we are dying," he shouted back, his voice trembling. One of the humans stepped forward, a figure taller than any Varelian with eyes that seemed to pierce through fear. Lieutenant Mara surveyed the city, her gaze sharp and calculating. "Good," she said softly, almost to herself. "They know they need us." Humans began deploying drones and machinery. Buildings that had seemed destined to crumble were reinforced in minutes. Toxic air was purified and energy shields blocked falling debris. Storms that had raged unchecked for weeks were redirected, dissipating against unseen forces. The Varelians watched in disbelief, their fragile minds struggling to comprehend what they were witnessing. Children peeked from broken windows, eyes wide. Elderly citizens whispered in awe, unable to reconcile the terrifying power with the salvation it brought. The humans did not speak in soothing words, they acted. Every move was deliberate, every command precise. This was not gentle help. It was absolute. Lether approached one of the human hovercrafts, trembling. Mara turned to him. "Do not be afraid. We are here to save you," she said. Her tone was calm, but there was no softness in it. It was a statement of fact, but... "Your methods," Lether stammered. "You destroy, but you save. How is this possible?" Mara's gaze did not waver. "Survival is not gentle. You asked for help. This is what help looks like in the universe. It is harsh, yes, but effective." Lether looked around. Streets that had been rivers of lava and rubble were now passable. Homes, though scarred, stood firm. The humans moved like predators and protectors at the same time, their presence both terrifying and comforting. Some Varelians resisted. They had seen only destruction for centuries and assumed these giants were agents of death, not salvation. They hurled rocks and primitive weapons at soldiers who could have destroyed them with a thought. Yet the humans did not strike. Instead, they evacuated the frightened, guided the weak to safety, and secured the city with shields and barriers. Each act of power was paired with an act of protection. Lether realized something profound. These humans did not negotiate with fear. They transcended it. They turned danger into an advantage and fear into order. Their presence was overwhelming yet strangely reassuring. As the night deepened, the humans set up temporary shelters and medical facilities. The air was clearer, the storms less violent, and the ground steadier. Families huddled together, whispering prayers of gratitude they never thought would be answered. Lether found himself standing next to Mara again, the stars reflecting in her unflinching eyes. "You saved us," he said quietly, "but you terrify us at the same time." Mara allowed a small smile. "Good, fear keeps you alive, and we survive for a reason. You will understand it soon enough." The Varelians watched the humans move through their ruined city, working tirelessly, efficiently, without hesitation. Each human was a force of nature, indestructible in their will, unyielding in purpose, relentless in action. Lether realized the truth slowly, painfully but undeniably. These beings were unlike any other. They were not just saviors, they were survival incarnate. For the first time in decades, Lether dared to hope. The world around him was broken, and yet salvation had arrived. It was not gentle. It was not quiet, but it was absolute. Humanity had reached Varelia, and in their terrifying strength there was a promise: the planet and its people would live. And somewhere in the darkness of the stars, the faint SOS signal had finally found its answer. Despite the humans' arrival, not all Varelians felt relief. Fear still gripped their hearts like a cold hand. Generations of suffering had left scars deeper than any quake or storm. Many could not distinguish between salvation and destruction. To them, the humans were giants of terror, armed with unimaginable power. Their very presence was both awe-inspiring and frightening. Small groups began gathering in the ruins, whispering in their translucent tones. "They are not here to save us," one elder hissed. "They are here to dominate, to end us." Others nodded in agreement, too weary to hope. These survivors had seen countless disasters, each one stripping away trust. The idea that a race of unstoppable beings could truly want to help was impossible to grasp. Lether felt the tension tightening in the streets. While humans reinforced buildings and cleared rubble, he could see the anger and fear simmering among his people. Children clung to parents, refusing to leave shelters, while adults muttered about betrayal and doom. The Varelians' panic was contagious, and even the strongest felt a shadow of doubt. Captain Rourke observed the unrest from the command hovercraft. His voice cut through the comms, sharp and unyielding. "Stop this hesitation. Any interference with our work will be neutralized. I repeat, your survival depends on compliance." For the Varelians, those words were frightening. Some saw them as a threat, others as guidance, they could not tell which. Rocks and crude weapons were thrown at the humans in small, desperate protests. The humans did not retaliate with violence. Instead, drones swiftly intercepted missiles and shielded civilians. Every act of aggression from the Varelians was countered with protection, not destruction. Lether approached Mara, his voice trembling. Why do you not strike them? You could wipe us out in seconds. Yet you protect us?" Mara's eyes met his, unwavering. "Because survival is not about who can destroy fastest. It is about who can endure, who can save. We protect because your survival is the proof of our purpose. We do not act out of mercy, but you will live because we act." For the first time, Lether realized the paradox of humanity. They were terrifying, unyielding, relentless, and strong, but within that terror lay a promise: life. Their methods were harsh, their presence overwhelming, but every move was calculated to preserve rather than annihilate. Days passed, and slowly the Varelians began to see the truth. Human machines repaired roads and stabilized buildings that had seemed doomed to collapse. Toxic clouds were pushed back, replaced with breathable air. Storms that had raged for weeks subsided under human intervention. Each human action carried the weight of immense experience, honed over centuries of surviving worlds far deadlier than Varelia. Some Varelians still resisted, retreating to the outskirts of the city, convinced the humans were harbingers of death. Lether understood their fear. The humans were not gentle. They were not comforting. Their power alone could kill, and yet they chose to use it to save. That contradiction was impossible to reconcile, but it was real. In a quiet moment, Lether watched a group of human soldiers lifting debris from a collapsed street. A young Varelian child ran forward, eyes wide, and clung to one soldier's armored leg. The human did not recoil, did not scold. He crouched, lifted the child gently, and handed him to a waiting parent. Lether's chest tightened. Even in their terrifying might, humans had a capacity for care. It was a care born not of softness but of necessity, a survival instinct that protected life because life was worth enduring. That evening, as twin suns set behind the ash clouds, the humans gathered Varelian leaders for a council. Captain Rourke's booming voice filled the temporary command hall. "Your planet is unstable. Your structures are failing. Your people are frightened. We are here to ensure you survive. Follow our guidance. Do not resist. Survival requires obedience, not fear." Some Varelians bowed in compliance. Others glared, their fear twisting into defiance. Lether stood between them, torn between loyalty to his people and awe of the humans. For the first time, he understood what humanity represented in the galaxy, a force of survival so absolute that it terrified even those it saved. That night, Lether sat among his people, listening to whispered fears and hesitant hope. The humans patrolled silently outside. Their presence felt even in the quiet. Sleep was elusive. The Varelians could not forget the raw power before them. Yet in the terror there was also a spark, a small, fragile hope that perhaps for the first time in generations, they could endure. Lether whispered into the dark sky, more to himself than anyone else. "We asked for help, and they came." They terrify us, yet they save us. Maybe this is the only chance we have left. Above them, the human ships waited. The giants who had answered the faint SOS were ready, patient, and unyielding. And though fear still gripped Virelia, life had a chance to survive because humanity had arrived and survival was in their nature. The humans had been on Virelia for several days. Streets were cleared. Shelters stood where rubble once lay, and the air had grown almost breathable. Yet Captain Rourke's sharp eyes noticed something the Virelians had not dared to consider. The planet itself was unstable. Not just its surface, not just the storms, but deep within its core, something was wrong. Lieutenant Mara approached Lether as he stood atop a reconstructed tower, surveying the city. "Commander, we need to talk," she said, her voice calm but urgent. Her gaze was steady, unblinking, and carried the weight of someone who had faced countless worlds on the brink of collapse. "What is it?" Lether asked, worry twisting his stomach into knots. He had thought the humans' presence was enough, that their arrival would solve every problem. Mara's eyes scanned the horizon. "Your SOS? It was not just about storms or earthquakes. We've scanned the planetary core. It's destabilizing. If we do not act, the planet will implode. The surface will be uninhabitable within weeks. Everything you've tried to repair, it will be destroyed." Lether's chest tightened. He had prayed for help, not understanding the full scope of the danger. "Implode, but the planet, our people," his voice faltered. "There's nothing we can do." Rourke appeared beside Mara, placing a firm hand on Lether's shoulder. "There is something you can do," he said. His voice was commanding, but not cruel. "We need volunteers. The best minds your species can offer. They will work with our technology to stabilize the core remotely. This is your choice and your responsibility. Refuse and the planet dies." Fear rippled through Lether's mind. To ask his people to face something they could barely comprehend was almost impossible. Many were already terrified of the humans themselves, and now he had to ask them to risk everything again, to work with giants whose power was as frightening as it was necessary. He called the Council of Virelia's leaders, the few who had survived decades of disasters. The meeting was tense. Elder Virelians shook their heads, eyes wide with disbelief. "We cannot survive this," one whispered. "No life could endure such forces." Lether took a deep breath. "We have no choice. The humans are not here to harm us, they are here to save us. But the core, it will destroy everything if we do not act. We must trust them. We must try." A murmur spread through the room. Fear battled hope in every heart. The humans waited silently outside, their presence overwhelming but patient. They understood fear, but they also understood survival. And they would not act until the Virelians themselves chose life. Finally, a group of young engineers and scientists stepped forward. Their hands trembled, their faces pale, but determination burned in their eyes. They would work alongside humans, bridging two species with nothing but shared desperation and the will to endure. Mara guided them to the human machines, interfaces far beyond anything the Virelians had ever imagined. "Focus," she said. "You will learn quickly. Your understanding of this planet is critical. Every action matters. If you fail, everything dies." The Virelian engineers swallowed hard. Machines hummed, lights flashed, and energy arcs leapt between human constructs and alien interfaces. For hours they worked, translating centuries of Virelian knowledge into systems the humans could use to stabilize the core. Every mistake sent tremors across the planet. Every small success strengthened it. Lether stayed near, watching, heart pounding. The humans were not gentle teachers. They were precise, demanding, and unyielding, but they guided the Virelians with a single goal: survival. Mara's eyes never left the displays, correcting errors instantly, instructing with sharp authority. Rourke oversaw the operation from above, ensuring nothing threatened the process. As the hours passed, hope slowly returned. Tremors lessened. Energy readings began to stabilize. The core, once on the brink of collapse, started to respond. But the danger was far from over. Every moment of delay, every hesitant move could undo everything. Lether could see the strain etched into the humans' faces. Even their terrifying presence could not make this task simple. It required skill, endurance, and courage. For the first time, Lether understood the true nature of humanity. They did not survive by luck. They survived through willpower, through precision, and through an unshakable commitment to life, even the lives of others. They were terrifying, yes, but they were also salvation incarnate. Night fell, but the work continued. The Varelians, guided by humans, learned to control energy flows, to redirect seismic pressures, to manipulate forces beyond their understanding. Fear was still present, but it was tempered by a growing realization. If these giants could survive, so could Varelia, Lether whispered to himself, staring into the darkened horizon where human lights glimmered like stars on the ruined ground. We called for help, and they answered. They terrify us, yet they save us, perhaps. Life is not about what is gentle, but what endures. Above them, human ships hovered silently. They had arrived in response to a faint SOS, but now their presence was far more than assistance. It was a lifeline, a promise, and a lesson in survival the Varelians would never forget. The nights on Varelia were still dark, filled with the distant echoes of tremors and the faint crackle of unstable energy from the planet's core. Yet, in the midst of fear, something began to change. The humans had taught the Varelians that survival demanded action, not panic. Slowly, the alien engineers and scientists began to trust their guidance. Slowly, hope emerged from the shadows of terror. Lether moved among them, watching young Varelians work alongside humans at massive consoles that hummed with impossible energy. At first, the aliens were hesitant, unsure if they would survive contact with the machines or the giants guiding them. But the humans were patient, their instructions precise, their movements deliberate. Fear was replaced by concentration, panic by determination. Focus on the core's stabilizers, Mara instructed sharply, pointing to an interface glowing with pulsating energy. If you miscalculate the flow, the core could spiral into total collapse. Keep steady. A young Varelian named Sira's hands shook as she followed her guidance. Tremors rocked the city around them, and she gasped at the thought of failure. But Mara's presence was steady, almost comforting despite the harshness. Sira adjusted the settings, following the alien and human data in perfect synchronization. Slowly, the tremors beneath the city began to lessen. Lether's heart swelled. He had prayed for a miracle, but what he witnessed now was more profound. Survival was not a gift. It was a choice, one made by working together, by trusting those who wielded power even when it terrified you. The humans did not comfort the Varelians with words. They demanded courage, and the Varelians rose to meet it. The human soldiers patrolled the streets, still imposing figures of strength, yet no longer just terrifying. They rescued children clinging to rooftops, guided frightened families to shelters, and dismantled unstable structures with careful precision. Every action carried a lesson. Life could be preserved, but only through diligence, courage, and trust. Lether found himself walking alongside Mara during a brief moment of calm. I never imagined help could be like this, he whispered, voice trembling. You terrify us, and yet we are learning to survive because of you. Mara's eyes softened just slightly. Fear is natural. Fear keeps you alert. But survival requires action. You are learning that now. For the first time, the Varelians began to see the humans not just as giants of destruction, but as teachers. Children watched in awe as human engineers demonstrated how to redirect seismic energy. Adults learned to manipulate gravitational flows, and even the elders began to contribute knowledge they had long thought useless. Two species so different in strength and nature worked side by side with one purpose: to preserve life. Yet tension remained. Some Varelians still whispered that the humans might turn on them, that their strength was too immense to be trusted. Arguments broke out over methods, over priorities, over trust. Lether had to remind them constantly, they are here to save us, not harm us. Survival requires unity, not doubt. Slowly, understanding grew. As hours turned into days, the planet responded. Tremors became less frequent, energy readings stabilized, and the air grew clearer. The humans' guidance, paired with Varelian knowledge, was working. They were reshaping Varelia's fate. One night, as twin suns rose faintly through the ash clouds, Lether stood on the highest tower with Sira at his side. Below, human and Varelian engineers continued their work, moving like a single organism. I thought we would fail, Sira whispered. I thought the planet would be lost, and it nearly was, Lether admitted. But now I see that fear can be overcome. We are learning to survive. Together. Mara's voice came over the comms, calm but commanding. Remember, every moment counts. Every adjustment matters. Do not falter. The planet depends on you and on us. Lether smiled faintly. The humans did not coddle them, did not make empty promises. Their lessons were harsh, their methods demanding yet effective beyond measure. In their fearsome presence, the Virelians found hope. Not gentle hope, not comforted hope, but a survival born from courage and determination. For the first time in generations, Virelia's people believed they could endure. The humans' terrifying strength had not destroyed them. It had inspired them. And in that inspiration, unity blossomed. The Virelians worked tirelessly alongside the giants, sharing knowledge, solving problems, and learning the unspoken truth. Survival was not guaranteed by chance, but by will, effort, and courage. Above them, the human ships glimmered in the ash-streaked sky, silent sentinels of power and protection. Lether looked up and whispered to himself, feeling the weight of the moment. They came because we cried for help, and now we endure. Because of them, life continues. Because of them, we are learning what it truly means to survive. The tremors still lingered, the planet still groaned, but a fragile hope now flowed through the hearts of Virelia's people. And with humans by their side, that hope burned brighter than any fear. The ground of Virelia trembled violently. Even after days of stabilization, the planet's core was still unpredictable, like a living beast that refused to rest. Sparks of energy shot across the fractured cities, and the air hummed with dangerous currents. The Virelians, once terrified, now moved with determination, guided by the humans. Yet the fear in their hearts had not disappeared. It had only sharpened into focus. Commander Lether stood among his people, watching as Mara and her team coordinated the final efforts. The humans' machines glowed with an eerie blue energy that pulsed in rhythm with the planet's core. The hum of power filled the air, vibrating in every bone, every breath. "Listen carefully," Mara said, her voice firm but not unkind. "This is the most dangerous moment. One wrong calculation, one hesitation, and the planet collapses. We work as one. Humans and Virelians together. Every action counts." The Virelian engineers nodded, gripping controls with trembling hands. Their fear was evident, but it was now mixed with determination. Survival had become more than hope. It had become a duty. Lether could see it in their eyes. They would not let Virelia die. Human soldiers moved among them, not just protecting, but teaching. They demonstrated energy redirection, corrected minor mistakes instantly, and guided the Virelians through sequences that could stabilize the core. Every motion was precise, every instruction clear, every decision calculated for survival. Hours passed. Tremors shook the city like angry fists pounding the ground. Buildings groaned under pressure. Children clung to their parents, eyes wide with terror, but none ran. None panicked. They had seen the humans act with unflinching courage, and now courage had become contagious. Lether felt sweat running down his face as he adjusted a control with Sira at his side. Sparks flew from a nearby console, and he jumped back, heart racing. "We can do this. We must do this," he whispered. Mara's gaze met his through the chaos. "Focus. Breathe. You are the difference between life and extinction." The core's instability reached its peak. Energy surged violently, threatening to break the containment barriers. Lights flickered, alarms blared, and the city trembled as if ready to split apart. Yet the humans did not falter. Captain Rourke moved among the machines with calm authority, issuing commands with a voice that brooked no hesitation. Every human's presence radiated strength and unyielding will. Lether's hands moved faster, syncing with Mara's instructions. Sira's small hands adjusted another control, guided by Mara's precise directions. Slowly, the energy flow began to stabilize. Tremors softened. The hum of danger became a rhythm of controlled power. "Almost there," Mara shouted, eyes fixed on the main console. "Keep focus. Every second counts." A massive tremor shook the tower where Lether and his people stood. Dust fell from the ceiling. For a moment, he feared failure, feared losing everything. But then he looked at the humans, the giants who did not flinch, who did not falter. Their courage, their unshakable will, gave him strength. With one final adjustment, guided by Mara and the human engineers, the planet's core settled. The violent energy pulses slowed. The trembling beneath the city faded, and the air no longer crackled with danger. Silence descended over Virelia, heavy but filled with relief. The Virelians stared at the consoles, hardly believing what they had accomplished. They had survived. They had worked with beings stronger, faster, and more powerful than any they had imagined, and together they had saved their planet. Lether dropped to his knees, exhausted, tears streaming down his face. Sierra did the same, gripping his hand. We did it, she whispered, voice shaking. Mara walked among them, her eyes calm but her expression betraying a hint of satisfaction. You did it, she said. We guided, you acted. That is survival. That is life. That is what it means to endure. Captain Rourke approached Lether, placing a heavy hand on his shoulder. You wanted help, he said simply. We answered. You survived because you learned to fight alongside those who will never falter. Remember this moment. Remember what it took. The Varelians, once terrified of the humans, now looked upon them with a new understanding. These giants were not cruel, nor were they benevolent in the way the aliens had hoped. They were something stronger, living embodiments of survival, courage, and unyielding determination. They were terrifying, yes, but their terror saved lives. That night, as the twin suns rose again over a calmer Varelia, the people gathered outside, looking at the human ships hovering silently above. Children laughed softly, elders smiled, and Lether felt a warmth in his chest he had not known for decades. Humanity had not only arrived, they had taught them the true meaning of endurance. Lether whispered into the calm night, voice carrying across the city. You saved us, and we will not forget. You are fear and hope at the same time. You are life itself. Above, the humans prepared to leave, their mission complete, but their impact remained, etched into the hearts and minds of the Varelians. The terror they had brought was no longer fear, it was strength, guidance, and the undeniable proof that survival was possible, even against the impossible. And in the silence that followed, one thought settled in Lether's mind. Humanity was not just a species. Humanity was a force that no disaster could overcome. The dawn over Varelia was different this time. The twin suns rose through a sky clear of ash and storm clouds. Streets that had been fissured and dangerous were now steady and strong. Buildings once threatened by collapse stood tall, repaired and reinforced. The tremors had faded. For the first time in generations, the planet felt alive and safe. Commander Lether walked through the city, witnessing life returning. Children ran freely through streets now cleared of debris. Families rebuilt their homes with careful hands, guided by the lessons humans had left behind. Even the elders, once filled with despair, smiled as they watched the young play, their laughter echoing across the city. Yet the greatest change was not in the buildings or streets. It was in the people. Fear had been replaced by confidence, panic replaced by resolve. The Varelians had faced the impossible and survived. They had learned that survival was not just about luck, or hope, or prayers whispered into the void. It was about courage, action, and the unyielding will to endure. Lether's thoughts drifted to the humans. Their presence had been overwhelming, terrifying, almost godlike, but it had been salvation in its purest form. They had arrived without hesitation, wielded power no other species could match, yet they had chosen to save rather than destroy. Their methods were harsh, precise, and relentless, but every action had been necessary. Humanity had not negotiated with fear, they had transcended it. Lieutenant Mara stood nearby, watching the Varelians work. Lether approached her. I do not know how to thank you, he said quietly. You saved not just our lives, but our world. And yet, your presence alone frightened us. How can we ever repay that? Mara's expression softened for the briefest moment. You already have, she replied. You learned to survive. That is all that matters. Life is the only true reward, Captain Rourke's voice carried from the hovercraft above, commanding yet calm. Remember this day, Commander. Remember it well. You called for help and it arrived, not gentle, not soft, but absolute. Survival is not easy. It is not comforting. But it is worth it. The Varelians had learned that truth in a way no story could teach. They had faced the ultimate danger, their planet on the brink of destruction, and emerged alive because they had chosen to work with beings stronger, faster, and more fearless than themselves. Humanity had shown them that true strength was not in violence alone, but in the combination of courage, action, and will. As the human fleet prepared to depart, Lether climbed to the highest tower and looked up. The ships gleamed in the sunlight, massive yet graceful, poised to leave as silently as they had arrived. Goodbye, he whispered. May your path be as unwavering as your will. Mara's voice came softly over the comms, carrying across the rebuilt city. Survive, endure. That is your gift now. You have seen what it means to confront the impossible and live. Do not forget it. One by one, the human ships rose into the sky, engines flaring with quiet power. They left no gifts, no monuments, no promises. Their legacy was far greater than any physical token. It was embedded in the hearts and minds of the Varelians. The understanding that survival was a choice, that life was worth fighting for, and that courage could overcome even the most terrifying odds. Lether felt a warmth in his chest as the last ship disappeared into the stars. He turned to the city below. Children played freely in streets that had once been death traps. Parents worked alongside neighbors, rebuilding homes stronger than ever. And everywhere he looked, he saw resilience, determination, and the spark of life that humans had helped ignite. He whispered to himself, a vow carried on the wind. We will survive. We will endure, and one day others may call for help, and perhaps we will understand what it truly means to answer. The planet, once a death world, now thrived. Its storms were tamed, its tremors diminished, its people strengthened. Humanity's brief presence had changed everything, not by domination, not by force alone, but by showing the Varelians what it meant to endure, to act, and to survive. And somewhere across the endless cosmos, other cries for help would rise. And somewhere humans would answer again, not with comfort, but with the terrifying, unwavering, and absolute will to preserve life. Virelia had been saved. Its people had been transformed. And its story, of fear, courage, and the arrival of humanity, would be remembered for generations as a testament to survival against impossible odds. Because humanity had come. They had seen despair and answered with action. They had terrified and saved. They had arrived, and in their presence life had endured. And in that truth the Varelians found hope that would never fade.